I listened to a 1 hour 30 minutes world building strategy podcast so that you don't have to. Now let's get right into it. Hi guys, if you're new here, my name is Peace and I'm just a girl who shares her financial journey online while taking you along with me. So I want to believe you've heard of the Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, who interviews people from all walks of life, science, healthcare, art, and everybody that has one way or the other impacted history in terms of, discoveries and all that stuff. So he recently interviewed a financial investor that was quite interesting, and I made sure to listen to the full episode of that podcast because it was so insightful from beginning to the end. But recently he interviewed Jeremy Grantham, a man that I have never really heard of, but in that podcast, I got to find out that he's such an amazing investor. He has done so well over the course of 60 years, being a financial investor and managing over $165 billion of people's money. And this year alone, he's managing $85 billion of other people's money. That is to show you that this guy knows what he's doing. At some point, he even predicted the .com crash that happened and then housing crisis that happened. So many things. So the guy is credible when it comes to the financial space, right? So in the recent podcast with Stephen Bartlett, he talked about a lot of things. I was so hooked to that podcast, and interestingly, I have never really listened to a podcast. I was more of like a girl who reads a lot of books, but recently I've been hitting this wall of not being able to read books. So I decided to go and listen to a podcast after hearing somebody say that listening to podcasts really impacted how they are person now, like in terms of personal growth and so many things. So I decided to go and listen to Diary of a CEO after seeing a clip of that particular interview on TikTok. Aside from the fact that they talked a lot about finances and so many things concerning money and him managing so many people's money, they talked about a lot of other interesting things. But today I want us to focus on the wealth building strategy that Jeremy Grantham suggested in that particular podcast, because it was quite insightful. I've never really had or seen anybody who gave do this if you have $1,000 or $10,000, let's say maybe the Nigerian equivalent, and you have money but then you don't really know where to put it. Let's break it down one after the other. The first point he made was to say, if you have $1,000 or you have $10,000 and you don't know where to put it or what to do with it, you should have a financial plan that goes like this. Number one, hold 60% of that your money in broad-based index funds. Not just any broad-based index fund. One thing I found interesting was he said, especially non-US broad-based index funds, because apparently US has hit that wall where now the likes of S&P 500, why they are making 25% in terms of profit and all that, other countries, other stocks that are not so known are making 65%. So you would imagine that, you are always concentrating on US stocks. At least that is what we've been made to believe over the past 20 years. At least, based on what I got from that conversation, that US stocks is good, US stocks, and it has been doing well so far. But then, based on what he talked about, history has shown that you are only relevant for some time. And the US has been that, go-to stocks. Most of the US stocks, Tesla, Amazon and the likes have been the go-to stocks when it comes to, building wealth and all that. But then they are beginning to get to that place where they are no more making so much money compared to, broad-based index funds of other countries. So you should look into them. So he says 60% of that your money should go into that option. So you think of the S&P 500, but then of other countries. Now, the next thing he suggested was to put 5 to 10% of that your money into precious metals. So you think silver, think gold, but then he never really specified which one you should go for, whether silver or gold. He just said those two are good options to put your money in. So you choose whichever one. Gold has always been very popular, but I don't really hear people talking about silver. Maybe it's just personal preferences and all that, but you can think of, sharing that your 5 to 10% into gold and silver. You can say 5% into gold, 5% into silver. That was quite an interesting one, because for me, I have always thought of that next year I'm going to be focusing more on, investing in precious metals, since I've mostly been investing in one other option that he talked about, which was very interesting. So this brings me to the next thing he talked about, or the next option he talked about, investing in government bonds. So you think of the likes of treasury bills, you think of the likes of, the Sukuk, any government bond is always viable. So he said to put a portion of your money in that. So the first one, 60% in broad-based index funds. The second one, 5 to 10% in precious metals. Then the third one, government bonds like treasury bills and all that. And then he also said if you have the money, or if it is convenient for you, that was the word he used, if it is convenient, invest in real estate. And we all know that real estate, one way or the other, has had a good run over the years, and it is always bound to increase. So if you have enough money, you can consider putting a portion of your money in real estate. Even though you cannot buy a house, you can think of land. I, for one, have invested a lot in land banking because I don't have enough money to build a house, so I can only start from where I am, right? And I'm just happy that I have been able to make that investment, because tell me why a land that I bought 2,500 in, let's say, 3 years ago, I'm not really sure now, don't quote me, 3 years ago, right now, I bought that land 2.5 million, right? My father is telling me that land is 15 million naira, that he will not even sell it 15 million naira. So think of investing in real estate in form of land banking or in form of owning a house. That is one way to go. So those are the 4 main options he talked about, putting your money as a strategy to building wealth. But then Stephen went further to say, you've mentioned all these ones, but what of crypto? And this man went on to say no to every single question that Stephen asked him concerning crypto. So if you are one that has been holding on to crypto, or you are good in it, good for you. But as for me, anything I don't know about, anything I don't understand fully, I'm not going to be putting my money there. And as someone who has tested crypto at some point during my wealth building journey, I have decided not to ever go back to crypto, because 1 naira out of that money that I invested, I can't account for today because I lost everything. So since then, I was like, okay, no. But the main point that really convinced me when he said no to crypto was that he said crypto is not a store of value. It is very volatile, that today it might be $120, tomorrow it is $60. So you are basically losing value. So it is not a good store of value. He then went on to say that not only is it a bad store of value, like it is mostly a means that criminals use to move money up and down when they don't want to be traced. I was like, very true. When you watch all those movies and you find that whenever they are moving money from one place to the other, they always use crypto as a convenient source because they don't want that money to be traced. They don't want anything. So crypto is basically like just used for criminal acts. But don't quote me on that. I'm just telling you based on what I've watched. And then me losing my money was a convention that no, I'm not going to put my money in this place because I don't understand it. So it's better I put my money where I know it is safe. Sometimes they say the boring way is the better way to building wealth. So I have chosen the boring way, putting my money in stocks, putting my money in treasury bills where I can see it. Basically diversifying. That is how far I have come. So just to recap, the main points he made was to put 60% of your wealth in broad-based index funds like the S&P 500 of America, but for that of other countries, because apparently America is coming to a place where they will no longer be so profitable. So don't put all your money in the S&P 500 of the America. Second is to invest 5 to 10% of your money in precious metals like silver and gold. Third is to invest in government bonds like treasury bills, government bonds, sukuk, that is for Nigerians, and every other type of government bond. Look into them and start investing in them. And then real estate, if you have the money, if it is convenient enough for you, invest in real estate. And lastly, if you don't know anything about crypto, don't put your money in crypto. Even though you know anything about crypto, be careful when you're putting your money there, because crypto, the man that has managed over $165 billion of other people's money for 60 years, have said that it is not a good store of value unless you want to take that risk, of which there's that situation of high risk, high reward. You might want to, consider checking where your risk tolerance is. That's all I have to say. So let's say you have $1,000 or $10,000 and you're looking for where to put it. Consider using the strategy that I've just talked to you about. It is something I learned recently from watching a podcast, and it was quite interesting to me, and I thought to share it with you guys. And guys, let me know what you think about this setup of these videos in the comments, because as a girl who was very vulnerable in my last post, I don't want to come to a place where I am now being so strict on myself when it comes to posting these videos on YouTube anymore. I'm going to be more free, just talking about what I've learned over the course of time. And just like this video, most of my videos are going to be like this, just me chillaxing, talking to you guys, and hoping that you get to receive the information in good faith, not necessarily about background, about setup and all those things. I hope you love it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'll see you guys in my next one.